Hello, Maddie. Hello. Whoa. I couldn't read that, but it looked like it said Midge, but that can't be right. Can it? What was that? Oh, it looks like something slightly blocking the frame. Oh no, I know what it is. Hold on. Oh, that's not stable. That's not stable. Let's hope that holds. Ooh, that's not stable at all. At some point during this slightly shorter stream, the phone may fall. Here's me giving you your disclaimer. Um, I hope it's not inhibitive. Inhibitive? It didn't say Midge, it said Mojo. Hello, Mojo. Hello, Gavin. Hello, Maddie. Hello, Panel Skies. Blue Panel Skies? And Womtang is here. Still remote today, but I'm heading back. To LA after this stream. So if somebody comes later in the stream, that is my bulletin for them. Hello, Max. Okay. I don't know if you were in the last stream. This is kind of like a CC all announcement, but I don't know who all of you were in the last stream. But the last stream, I was not in LA. I was remote, up in Mammoth, California. I'm still remote for this final one. This is going to be the final remote stream because I'm leaving after this stream, and I will be back in Los Angeles. But in the last stream, I was showing how to make or what the theory was behind making I'll say unpleasant or ear-catching tones, and how it like really relies on dissonance or things sounding sharp and unbalanced and unpleasant. Um, the two examples that I used was like a car horn and like an Amber Alert, which are two sine waves. Oh my god, we're not gonna make the whole stream nerdy talk, I promise. But they're two sounds built off of sine waves. The sine wave being that's a sine wave. It doesn't matter what note you play it in, but that's the sound of a sine wave. And even when you listen to the bases, again, for those two sounds being a car horn and a Amber Alert, they're both built off of a sine wave. Okay, I really don't want this to be a physics stream, Maddie, I promise. I feel like a substitute teacher who has had to fill in for a teacher for slightly too long, and I clearly don't have a lesson plan that's going to benefit the kids. So I just want to put on a movie, make the kids watch Romeo and Juliet for the 15th time. But I do have a couple of things that I want to go over, which is building tones. Now, last time we were in the stream, unfortunately, I don't have a camera face completely or all the way down, like from bird's eye, on my micro cord here, this white keyboard, because that's what I'm going to be making the patch in. This keyboard over here is more of it's more of a Rhodes emulator. It's supposed to do all the things that an electric piano can do. So there's like Rhodes settings, even a clav setting. But there aren't patches to be built. There's a few live effects. There's tremolo on here, and there's chorus. There's delay. And there's reverb, of course. And so this is more the keyboard that you can build patches and soundscapes with. Lindsay, I wasn't actually that cold. That's a very good question. That is a very good unmathematical and unmusical question. I just wasn't that cold. The, um, there's something about, there's something about this town, or maybe it's just snow. I've been to like cold environments. I've been to places like, um, Toronto, Montreal, and Chicago, and Detroit and stuff like that, and I have been like uncomfortably cold, like almost painfully cold. But walking up there and then I wasn't. It wasn't that unpleasant. The only thing that I will say that was kind of unpleasant was hmm, the snow. I mean, it's just water. So once it hits you, it does turn to water, and so you get wet. I was wet. I wasn't wearing like waterproof clothes, but no, no, it wasn't. It wasn't too bad. It was actually really nice. Hmm. Yeah, it wasn't. That's another thing to note. It wasn't extremely windy, Lindsay. Just a light breeze, pretty much the entire time. Thank you, Cyber. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Um, most of them have fallen down as far as the icicles, Lindsay. But I'll try to find one more before we leave. I did, Cyber. I did. I don't know when I'm actually going to be able to use them. The field recordings. I don't know when I'm actually going to be able to use them. But it is nice to kind of always have them on hand, like a store, just in case. Um, what am I gonna do? Maybe love letters. I have to play it higher. My bad. This is kind of hard, actually. Can I do that? Oh wait, hold on. Oh my goodness. That is incredibly difficult. Um, okay. It's been strange adjusting. I got an iPhone for work. Oh. Yeah, I actually had like a. I was talking to my friend yesterday about Line and how Line, like the Line app on iPhones versus Androids, is like in in 99% of cases the exact same, but there's very small differences that do make it kind of a learning curve moving from one to the other. I love the chord takes on these tunes and like the border chip tune sounding music in general. It has a quaint quality to it. You're right, Cyber. I was doing a lot of arrangements last night. My family called me, and I was doing arrangements while they were kind of talking to each other because it was a group call. And it's funny how, I mean, this keyboard, this microchord, has Polyphony Max 4. Polyphony Max 4, for anybody who is in the stream that doesn't know what that means, it means that it can only play 4 notes simultaneously. Um, my Yamaha Reface doesn't have any polyphony. I can hit down a bunch of notes at the same time, and it will play them all. However, if I'm playing my microchord, for example, this is one note, one, two, three. It'll hit those 4, but if I add a 5th note, it'll like cut the signal to one of the 4. And so if I'm playing something more complicated, like what's a complicated one? Ooh, key lime. Trying to play that on here. You can hear it kind of struggling to hit all the notes. So, that being said, I was trying to do arrangements on, like, smaller arrangements on the microchord. Hello, Mary. I'm sorry if I didn't say good morning to you. And good morning, Mushroom Tea. I was trying to do arrangements that were slightly, that were max for polyphony. I was trying to do arrangements where there is never more than 4 notes in the song playing at the same time. And it was actually very challenging for me coming from like my normal stringy piano that has no limits to how many notes it can play at once. There are songs. Also, when I'm playing songs in this stream, I am going to be using the microchord for the bass and the reface for the highs. The only reason that this is a slightly difficult process is because, one, they are turned this way and they're not completely aligned with each other. And the second reason is because the reface's keys are slightly bigger than the microchord's keys, and it might seem weird. It might seem weird or even hard to explain, but having to have that weird consolidation, mentally make that consolidation of like spacing of hands, because one keyboard is physically has smaller keys than the other, would be like riding a bike where one of the pedals moves slightly faster than the other one. So you're not in tandem. One's kind of going like this. And so it's a little hard to play most of my songs of the stream because of the polyphony and for that reason, the key spacing and sizing. I'm glad this makes sense though, Cyber. I would make the argument that not only is it easier to go from Android to iPhone than from iPhone to Android, I would say that it's also easier to go from Windows to Mac than it is to go from Mac to Windows. Windows is just... Sorry, I heard a sound. I would say that Macs are way more streamlined than a Windows computer is. I don't want to get into any Mac versus Windows thing. That's not what I'm going to do. That's the thing I'm not going to do. Yeah, that's fine to not like Macs. That's not my argument. I think my argument is just that Windows has way more, like, Windows would be like driving a car, and Mac would be like riding a roller coaster. Where like a lot of the things and the maintenance and the processing and customization that Windows allows you and sometimes requires you to do just isn't a thing. Isn't a thing on Macs. And with a lot of the simplicity comes limitations, but we're not going to get into that because that is a Coke and Pepsi argument. That's a Coke and Pepsi argument. Okay. How far are we in? We're not that far. Oh, crap. We're only 15 minutes in. Good. I haven't wasted that much time. So, while I was up here, I was doing a little bit of field recording, and I was also working on some editing of videos that I have already recorded in my bedroom. Yeah, same, Lindsay. I'm a Windows baby. I mean, technically, my school, when I was like 10, had Macs. They had like the old ones, but I'm a Windows person. Okay, so I did some recording for like, I also did some video editing. And something that I actually noticed, I mean, I know everybody, I don't want to get too deep into like maybe the sadder aspects of this self-quarantine era, but that's the trick. That's the trick. Oh, that's the trick. You make the lead just not hit at the same time as the chords. So you stab chords. And so like if I was doing Winter Heart instead of being, it would be interesting. I figured out how to conquer 4 max polyphony. Anywho, what I was saying was I recorded a bunch of like samples and did also some arrangements on Hello Hank, good morning. I did some arrangements on video editing. And with everybody, I mean, obviously we've seen it, whether we want to talk about it or not. The internet is full. What it feels like is it feels like when I was going to school, you could hang out at like lunch period. You could hang out in the cafeteria, or you could just kind of be out amongst the grounds, you know. But if there was a really heavy rainstorm, as would happen in Arizona from time to time, everybody was in the cafeteria. So all the spaces you would normally hang out in the cafeteria were typically taken, and it was just louder and messier, and generally harder to find a peace inside because everybody had come inside. I feel like that is what is happening right now with the internet. Well, because everybody is forced to be inside, everybody is also extremely online, and it has caused the place of peace or any type of like carved out space on the internet to be overcrowded and sometimes annoying. And so I actually in this time have I would say that I've actually become less active online, especially since I've been up here at this cabin. I've been way more just kind of plugged into music things and what exactly I wanted to make and all that, what exactly I was going to be doing with the samples that I was recording. And I think that I posted a when was this? Some of you guys will remember my RMR post. RMR had like I don't know, like a hip hop country song is the best way that I could describe what that was. And I made a orchestral arrangement to it. And in the orchestral arrangement video to it, I showed what the MIDI of the arrangement looked like. For those of you that aren't familiar with MIDI, it's just digital information that portrays musical notes. And so I did that. I made a video of that. And it wasn't like my usual performance videos. I didn't actually appear in the video. The video is all screen recorded stuff. There wasn't actually any of me playing a keyboard. No, Hank, I leave today. I go back to LA after the stream, actually. But um, that was like a different type of video. And I think I'm going to do more videos like that because I would like to do whatever I can to demystify the act of production. And I feel like a good way to do that is to make DAWs are the names of the programs that we use to produce music. I want to make the DAW and my content going forward way more accessible, and I want people to see it more. I want people to see what like Fruity Loops looks like more, so that maybe if one day, even if they don't end up pursuing music as a skill set or as a talent or as a whatever career, they will at least be desensitized to the way the DAW looks and the way it behaves. And this could actually be really good for me talking to you guys on the stream, because if you guys are, thank you, Cyber, because if you guys are in the stream regularly, daily, and I'm talking to you about production things, you might actually remember or be able to relate or connect with something that you've seen in a video that I've put up about production, or a video that has MIDI in it and whatnot. Okay, so all of that said, I was working on building patches. In the last stream, I did do a building of a patch, but we kind of got sidetracked when I started talking about car horns and Amber Alerts. So I'm going to do a quick patch build in this stream. I'm not going to save this patch. This is just going to be a slow progression to show you guys how most of the sounds, specifically in Nice Stream, if you listen to Nice Stream, a lot of those like cutesy, like video game oriented sounds were made. Oh, I'm glad, Lindsay. I'm glad. Now, subtractive synthesis, I'm going to start using some words that might sound maybe a little bit bigger or maybe somewhat intimidating, but don't focus too much on the term because I'll usually explain it right afterwards. So subtractive synthesis is what I use for all of my sound design, all of it, every last bit of it. Most synthesizers use subtractive synthesis. I'm talking about synthesizers like my microKORG, my Roland SH201 back at the home, my MX61 use subtractive synthesis, and that is simply taking a waveform, like this would be a sine wave, this would be a square wave, this would be a triangle wave. Triangle wave and sine waves are very close together. I know the difference now, but I didn't used to. Triangle has a little bit more bite. Sine, triangle, square. This is different. This is Vox and digital. But we're not going to get into those because I'm just going to use a sine wave and maybe a triangle at first to show you guys some stuff. So, again, this is a sine wave. Now, as I'm going over building this sound, you'll probably recognize, if you've heard Nice Dream, Love Dream, or even Daydream, you'll recognize some of these sounds as I build them because a lot of the things that I do are born out of sine waves. I am going to change my position really quickly because my leg is falling asleep. So that's going to have to happen at least once every 15 minutes. Okay, so this is a sine wave. We have it ringing out indefinitely. It's going to ring out as long as I hold down the key. I'm going to change that really quick. So in synthesis, there's a thing called ADSR. ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. It's a lot, and it sounds maybe complicated if you don't do a lot of synthesis. Oh, thank you, Cyber. I might actually check that out. I like music apps. But it stands for attack, decay, sustain, release, and that is simply the duration of a note. It's like the duration and the narrative of a note. Like this attack. This attack is very, very low, which means that it's coming in pretty fast. Now, if we take the attack and we turn it higher, this attack is at 0. It's coming in, it's attacking very quickly. If we add to the attack, it takes longer for the note to come in, it kind of fades in. And this is with the attack at 127, sounds like this. Takes a really long time to come in. And then with the attack at, let's say, 74, it sounds like this. And then with it at 0, it sounds like this. So that is how you get, how that's like one part of it. So the attack, decay, sustain, release. Sustain is simply how long a note lasts. That makes sense if you're familiar with the sustain pedal. You can change the sustain of a note. And so, this is the decay. You can change the sustain of the note. So obviously, if it's all the way up, the note's going to last as long as you hold it down. If you turn it down, it'll like kind of divot off. It'll fade out because it doesn't have the sustain anymore. And then release is just the release of the note. So if I turn the release all the way up and I hit the note, the release is really high, so it kind of rings out. Now if I turn the release all the way down and I hit the note, it doesn't happen. And there's of course a bunch of different variables in between there. So what I have done right now for this sound is the sustain is cut a little bit lower and the release is cut down to about the midway point. So this is what these notes sound like. Remember, we started with just a simple sine wave, and we've already gotten a little bit of a different sound. This is a sound that I used a lot for Nice Dream. That's beautiful. So, this is with sine. The sine wave, a really simple sine pad. So now we're going to do a few more things to it. I'm going to go back into the wave form, and instead of having it be a sine wave, I'm going to have it be a square wave now. Also a sound that's very, very popular in chiptune and like video games, usually like Game Boy games. Usually Game Boy games. Yes, yes, yes. Hmm. So now that we have that, I'm going to start messing with delay. Delay is simply a fancy word for echo. There actually is a slight difference between echo and delay, but we're not going to get into it because it's like the difference between water and alkaline water. It's not important. So, the delay, there's a lot of different types of delay. I'm not going to get into all of them today because maybe this is something I could break down better and in more depth in a different stream where I don't only have roughly 30 minutes to do so. So, I'm going to turn up a delay. Let's set it here. Ooh. You can hear it coming in. There it is. That's a little close. I don't like how immediate that is. So you can set the timing of the delay so it doesn't come in that fast. More of like a classic delay. Now, there is a... Oh, hi, Liana. Um, so, I don't know why I'm including you guys in my... I mean, you guys are here for the process, so I'll say we. So, when we alter the timing of a delay, sometimes we'll get a tape breaking effect, which I kind of showed you guys in the last stream, which is... I use a lot. Because delay in this one, the same thing happens on my reface. My reface also has digital delay, but if you change the timing of it, it does a tape break effect. And so for my Daydream EP, when I was doing a lot of those delay effects, a lot of those were analog and digital delays. So I can't actually go back in and change those. Because that is the one thing, like obviously when I'm doing that and I have the delay on, there is no MIDI information for this. There's no MIDI information for that. But messing around with it a lot, you can get some kind of cool sounds. So usually what I'll do is I'll just turn on my interface at home, usually when it's pretty late at night. And I will just set them up to digital feedback loops, and I'll hit a bunch of stuff, and I'll just keep messing with timing until I get a kind of cool... Oh, hello, Ava. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so that's the delay. That's the delay section. I'm talking more so about active editing of the timing, but we're not going to do that for right now. We're just going to leave it on a normal delay. And ooh. That sounds like a guitar. This is just a clav with the drive turned all the way up. So again, a clav sounds like this. Now, a thing that a lot of people make a mistake about, which this is kind of has nothing to do with anything, but a thing that people make a mistake about is thinking that an electric guitar, the majority of the tone comes from the guitar. Sorry, distorted electric guitar. When you distort something, you're going to get a very similar effect. Distorting something, overcompressing something, driving something. There's a lot of different techniques to get that sound, but they're all going to get the same thing. So kind of if you overdrive or overcompress or distort any instrument, it is going to have that guitar quality because at least in our culture, we're used to hearing distorted guitars, but not necessarily distorted violins or distorted keyboards or distorted clavs. So the distorted clav does have a kind of guitar-y feel or tone, and that's simply just because of how used to hearing distorted guitar we are as a people. Anywho, that was over and under. I don't know if I can do the middle section. I'll be weird. I think that overdriving something and destroying something actually isn't something that this synth can do. Just something to keep in mind. There are some things that these synths can do both of, and there are some more important things that they each have over the other. This one has a richer effects section, in my opinion. Um, and then this one has a bigger, obviously, subtractive synthesis section. Obvious to me. I don't know. I'm sorry about that. Maybe it's not that obvious. I want to get into vocoding a little bit, but maybe at the very end. Yeah, and we have a few minutes left, so. We're still building this synth. So right now, we have a square wave with some delay on it, and the release and the decay is turned down. So it kind of has like a little... Oh, wait. Who wrote that? That's just the doorbell thing, right? What is that? Is that from something though? Before it was a doorbell? Alright, I'm switching again. I like falling asleep. Okay, we're gonna keep building this synth patch out. So I hope you guys enjoyed that sound because we are kind of going to mess it up beyond recognition at this part. Big Ben. Mozart invented that for Big Ben. I could have done that. Mozart's not so great. Anyways, no, that is very good. And I do like Big Ben. Or at least I like the area of London that it's in. I haven't been in at least 3 years. 4 years. Oh. I miss the UK. Okay, now we're going to go back into our waveform, and we're going to go from a square to a saw. Now, a saw wave is where that like buzzier sound comes from. Usually if you've listened to much or any EDM, you've heard a saw wave, you've heard a super saw wave, you've heard layered saws. Saws are going to sound like that. But really quickly, I'm going to reset the release so that it delays, and I mean not delays, so that it sustains like that. And ow, oh my god, my foot is completely asleep. And so we're going to take that and we're going to go back over to the attack, decay, sustain, release section. We're going to turn the attack up so it fades in like that. And then we're going to turn up the portamento now. Portamento is a thing that I talked about briefly in the last stream, which connects two notes. If you play two notes like this, they are not connected. There's a lot of notes in between those, and it simply is jumping from this note to the other one. Now, there is a way in synthesis to make it so that the notes are always connected. So instead of simply playing this note and this note, it'll go from here, and it'll slide up like that. Now, I can't do that on this, because this is not really a synthesizer. This is a Rhodes piano emulator. But on an actual synthesizer like this one over here, I can do that. So if I go to pitch, and I turn up the portamento, again, the portamento at 0, here are these two notes. Unconnected. If I turn up the portamento, it'll connect those two notes by sliding between them. Here how it's like a bend. To exaggerate this effect or make it more noticeable, I can turn the portamento up even higher. so that it gets there slower, and then you can turn it up really high to where it really does take a while. There it is. Wow, that was taking a really long time. I was actually gonna cop out. I was gonna end it, but I was like, why do that? That ruins the example. So that is portamento. But what I really like doing is if you turn on portamento on a polyphonic instrument. Polyphonic again means that it can play multiple notes at one time. If you turn up that for portamento for a polyphonic instrument, when you're playing chord progressions like that same chord progression can sound like this. Gives it kind of like a goofier sound. And so if you listen to Sugar Glider does this a lot. Bon Bon does this a lot. As does come on me, third example. You got one somewhere in there. Oh, Midnight Drift 2 does that also. Bending notes to get to a new chord kind of makes the chord sound like instead of like if you turn portamento all the way down, it's very clear and easy to count the chords like 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord, 8 chord, 9 chord. But if we're playing it all sustained and you turn the portamento up, it's less clear where one chord truly begins and another one ends. And it's because you're only changing a few notes because they're blending and bleeding into each other. I'm done with that. So that is the portamento bleed, but I'm going to turn it down really low because I only want about that much. God, I miss having polyphony higher than 4. Okay, and so now we're going to go back over to delay. The interesting thing about delay is this synth does not have a reverb on it. Reverb, I love reverb. If you listen to any of my songs, there's reverb on something. This chord or this ARP with no reverb sounds like that. This chord with reverb sounds like that. Gives it more of like a roomy feel. It sounds like it's happening in like a stadium or an arena, and I love it. It's good for making things sound more impactful, or sometimes less impactful. I mean, depending on how you use the tail of the reverb. But this synth doesn't have reverb, and so kind of an ape or a cheat or wow, it's really snowing out there. It looks really windy too. Sorry, so kind of like a trick to get to that reverb sound without actually having a reverb is to mess with delay. So going back over into delay. This gives it more of an atmosphere. It's very, very short, but it's there. And we can always turn that up. That's funny. And then we can turn up modulation or a modulator, which will bend the note back and forth. So there's a little knob over here that if I hit a note, I can push this knob up to bend the note upwards, or I can pull it down to bend the note downwards. But there's another wheel on a lot of synthesizers called a modulation wheel, which you can set up to a lot of different parameters, but typically it is default set to pitch. So instead of bending this up or bending it down, it'll make it alternate and wiggle between the two. And so if you have that on a half setting, it'll kind of make everything sound modulated. It sounds like goofy, like Luigi's Mansion stuff. Which is just kind of like mostly from our culture's connection with the theremin and ghost sound. So if you listen to an instrument called the theremin, which does sound like this, it sounds like ghost noises because we use that sound a lot of ghosts and like alien, space, usually anything that's supposed to be mystery, mysterious, bizarre, weird, usually uses a theremin sound. And so that is why usually any simple waveform that has modulation on it will have that same like spooky vibes. Okay, um, I did that because I want. Sorry, I gotta change again. The foot's falling asleep. Okay, but I did that because I wanted to show that once you have that, you can make any chord progression have a different feel, a different feel in timbre. Timbre, spelled Timbre. Yes, that is the instrument with the antenna. Thank you, Hank. Yes, you know what a theremin is. That is what a theremin is. Made by Moog. It was very popular in the 80s. Some people still use it. It's just not as practical. It's more of like a fun gimmick now because you can get the desired effect from a theremin without actually owning one. It's a lot of information nobody in the stream necessarily needed, but thank you, Hank, for knowing what a theremin is. I appreciate you. Okay. Okay, so usually when I'm writing music, you can make something sound cute, or you can make something sound fun or happy depending on the notes you choose. Um, Tone or harmony um, has a lot of dominion over what a song is going to sound like, right? People always talk about chords being happy chords or chords being sad chords. And this is true for the most part. You can kind of like wiggle and be somewhere in the gray area. If you listen to a lot of my music, typically when I have sad songs, I use happy chords to add a level of ambiguity to the song. Or usually, when it's really doing it out there. Sorry. Usually when I do the opposite too. If I'm having a happy song, I will usually use a lot of tone and timbre to make it sound sad. And so I'm going to dip into that really, really quickly in the stream and explain why and how that is. So you can have a happy chord progression. And now we can try to make that sound slightly sadder by doing a lot of changes to it. So if we make sadder chords, that's funny. Anyways, verses. Yeah. It's just a slight change. Now, I'm still playing it in a very happy rhythm, right? Um, so it still has that kind of like bounce and bop to it. So even though I've changed the chords to be slightly more sad chords, it still has a happy feel because there are a lot of things that contribute to a song's feeling that aren't just the notes that you're playing. Rhythm is a big thing, and timbre is a big thing, right? So, I mean, and these things you have to play them all in tandem, right? So, like, you can have a happy rhythm, but if the notes you're choosing and the lyrics you're choosing and all that other stuff is sad, the sad will kind of overpower the songs. A lot of times in songs, especially more recently, again, if you listen to Ego Death, it's a very good example of that, or even Quick Breath, I try to balance sadder, more dissonant, distorted, unstable techniques in. I try to mix it in with like happier, typical, like boppy, dancey rhythms, just for a good mix. Now, a lot of my chord progressions typically border along happy, cute, fun, uplifting, or at least the ones that I play in the stream. Which is why when I do play something that is outside of that, people will go like, "Oh, this is a sad one on there. This is a weird one." For example, the Witchy song, which that's not its actual official name, but if you've been in the stream and you've heard me play the Witchy song, it doesn't have. Oh, I can play that on this keyboard. What am I doing? Oh, and it has like the ghosty vibes. Okay, so this song. And so that song, even without the This is so distracting. I get distracted at home looking outside because there's like weird stuff happening, but it's never snow, so this is new for me. But um, that's the witchy song. I'm playing it way too high. That's the problem. So this song uses slightly different chords and keys than I typically play in songs. So it does catch people's ears like, oh, this is different. This is witchy, or this is spooky Halloween vibes. And it's because I'm doing a different notes. When you listen to the rhythm, this rhythm, that's a rhythm that I use in a lot of stuff. If you think about, what's the song? What's the song? Beneath the City? Same exact rhythm, but because the notes that I'm choosing are different, it has a different emotion. Again, same rhythm, same sound. You saw I just played them in the same sound, but it has a different emotion because of the scale or key that I'm in, which is interesting. Now we can do something like taking a a similar chord progression where the chord progression doesn't change at all, but the rhythm does. The rhythm that I'm playing it in and the sound that I'm using changes. So if I'm using again, oh sorry, what is that one chord? Here it is. I love that chord progression. I play it pretty much every string. If I'm playing that over here on this keyboard, same notes, different sound and rhythm. So instead of doing the that poppy rhythm, if I spread it out, if I turn it down, if I turn up the wiggle. It does have a different feel. Again, same exact chords, same speed, but the rhythm and the timbre is different, so it creates a different feel. A lot of people like if I'm going into a scoring opportunity or I'm scoring something for somebody. Scoring again, really quickly, is just adding music to visual media. Scoring to film, scoring to animation, scoring to a video game. And so, if I'm adding score to a sad scene. Somebody's like, we need it to be really sad. I know the easy ways or the easy routes you can go to if you want something to sound very typically sad or just. Somber, yummy. Everybody loves somber notes. So I can make something really sad. Or if somebody's like, we want something to just sound scary or whatever. I mean, I don't have all my tools with me. I don't have all my tools with me like my strings. That's how you make things scary. But I know like notes that makes things scary. I know that if I play this note, and I know if I play notes that are really close together, it's going to sound very dissonant and creepy. If I add more to that, it's just going to sound creepier. That's like a very popular horror chord. I don't know what the name of that chord is, but I hear it in lots of like old, late 90s, early 2000s horror films. And so you can easily go for like kind of a low barrier of entry um, emotional effect, right? Somebody's like, you want it to sound happy? I know how to make something sound happy. You want it to sound sad? I know how to make it sound sad. You want it to sound scary? I got you. Goofy? That's my main event. You can do those things, but something that I find a lot more interesting is two things. One, mixing in a lot of those elements to the same track. Mixing in maybe like a horror stab into the middle of a funk track, trying to figure out how that works. I don't have my studio with me, but when we get back to LA and future streams, I do want to show you guys how I have done that. Because before this stream, you guys probably wouldn't have had the context to understand what I meant when I was like talking about horror chords in a funk song, or adding like a funk bass lick in a jazz song. There are a lot of times where you can take ingredients from different stereotypes and put them into something to make something actually really interesting. And a lot of techniques, a lot of very famous techniques, are actually born out of that. Um, I am not a music theory man, but you really don't have to be to understand the general and kind of simplistic concept of taking something and adding it to another thing in order to enrich that thing. This happens with classical music. This happens with jazz music. If you listen to a lot of jazz music, there have been times where jazz musicians, have like harped on classical motifs, or jazz musicians have taken a popular song and made a jazz version of it by adding certain things that are like indicative of jazz are going to always be in jazz. But if you go outside of jazz and you grab like a rock song and you play it in a jazz format, it's going to cause you to do things that wouldn't naturally occur in a jazz song. And that is where like kind of like the birth of fusion comes from. But that is the same mentality that I go by when I'm like, okay, I want to make a song for me. I want it to contain a multitude of emotions, or I want it to have a gray area of emotions. There's a way to do that, which is just by not resting so happily on cute, bubbly, happy all the time. Like something like Bon Bon is a good example of something that's cute, bubbly, and happy the whole way through, except for like the middle where it gets weird. But even when it's weird, it's still cute in its strange oddities. Goodbye, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being on the stream. Appreciate you. I mean, you're getting out of here only moments before the rest of us. The stream's almost over. Um, okay, okay. So as I was saying, ooh, they both have delay on them. Now they have reverb. Okay, so adding happy elements, adding sad elements, adding something that you hear in a jazz song. Try to, as a musician, this is kind of just a message to the world and to myself also. Good thing to try to do as a musician is to listen to music that even you wouldn't particularly like, and try to find a characteristic in it that you do appreciate, and then fold that into your own music. A lot of a good analogy would be for food. A lot of like the best recipes, or a lot of the best um, and most flavorful and interesting and popular and successful foods are completely changed from what they originally were, right? Um, there's no way any of us can really know what like the first pizza tastes like. Maybe it was amazing, maybe it was horrible. I don't know what it was, but we can't know that. But a lot of us like pizza today, and pizza today benefited from decades and decades of people adding things, taking away things, changing the technique of how to cook it. All of these things made the pizza. And when you think about music, music happens that same exact way. You know, all musical genres are informing other ones. All instruments are informing other ones. There are a lot of things that happened in delay with delay pedals early on. And obviously, me being able to do this comes from the early delay pedals. Like delay pedals for guitars and stuff like that. Rhodes pianos didn't come with built-in delay, but having that rock influence is what got us here. In fact, having the rock influence period is what made the Rhodes. If you think about the early Fender Rhodes, all the Rhodes was an electric distorted piano. Somebody took the idea of having a real piano, like a grand or an upright piano, and they were like, what if instead of just a stringed instrument with a bunch of hammers hitting it, if it was like metallic and it was distorted? And then that is how the Rhodes was born. And so, taking pieces from a bunch of different wholes and folding them into what you have is kind of like a good basis for not only just creating new genres, creating something new, but also allowing that thing to grow. It's kind of like when you think about all those dogs that have been like inbred for so long that yeah, they look cute, but they have all kinds of wild health issues and health problems. Um, you need to mix things in. You gotta like enrich the gene pool, so to say, to keep things fresh and to also keep things interesting and to allow it to grow. Things can't grow if you don't allow things to mix. Over time, they will die, and that is kind of the same with music. So, that being said, I want to over the next few videos. I mean, maybe not for video 100. We'll do something for video 100. I don't know. But over the next few videos, I want to show specific techniques like how I make happy songs, how I make sad songs, how I make horror music, how I make video game music, and how I take little bits of each one of those and I try to fold it into when I'm making a song for you guys. When I'm making something like Close Down for you guys, for the audience, it is informed by all of the other genres that I've had to make. In Close Down, there is little bits and pieces of video game arrangements and compositions. There's little bits and pieces of jazz music that I got into. In fact, the whole chord progression at the end of Close Down is a jazz chord progression that I was actually writing for Signals early on, and then it ended up being in that. Where is it? There it is. But yeah, I'm glad that you like Close Down, Maddie. Thank you very much for that. We are in minute 55 though, so it is time to start going over news. Um, okay, so I did release a song called "The View." It is on Bandcamp. I don't know if you guys are on Bandcamp. Bandcamp was wild a few days ago. They're actually giving 100% of all revenue that they made from music sales to the artists, and not actually taking any cut. So if you did purchase any of my music during that time, thank you so much for that. I do really appreciate it. If you didn't, no matter. It's all still there. It's all still there. So The View is on there. It's on a collection of work called Lazarus with Attack the Music. So check that out. It's also Googleable. Omni The View. Omni Boy The View. Copy all Spree Dream onto my phone for on the go listening. Oh, word up. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's really sweet, Cyber. I'm glad that you like Speed Dream so much. I'm not done with Speed Dream. I know that it's like really difficult because I haven't finished it, and so people think that it's a dead idea. It's still in me. I don't know what that means, but it's not dead. It's not dead. I do still have part 2 of Speed Dream. It's just not done, you know. But anywho, I do really appreciate that. Thank you, Cyber, for still supporting Speed Dream. That is like my baby. So The View is out on Bandcamp and Spotify. Also, I do have 2 new bodies of work out. One of them is called Quick Breath. The other one is called Ego Death. They are available on all the streaming platforms as well. I should go over them, though, or try to. Did I do that last time with 2? Yeah, they're available on Bandcamp, Spotify, SoundCloud. Ooh, you gotta start that over again. Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon MP3, Tidal, Groove, Deezer, Pandora, Napster, and YouTube. So listen to those when you get a chance. We're on YouTube right now, so while you're here, I do have some videos that I recorded for a few of my songs, like Into Thin Air and Hush Hour, and I also put up a video for a remix to Justin Bieber's song Yummy, and I think I'm going to put up a video tomorrow too, of just like me making a chill beat. We're all kind of stuck inside right now, which brings me to my next bit of news. I have been away from my home for the weekend, which is why the last 2 streams have been happening remote. I apologize if the stream has not been to your liking. I'm doing the best I can. And I'm trying to also keep the streams consistent to where they at least happen at 9 a.m. every day. So thank you to everybody who has also been consistent right along with me and been here for them. Also, as far as tour dates and as far as merch, those things are on hold. I don't know if you guys need me to tell you, but the country's a nightmare right now. And so we're kind of just all on pause. So I haven't even put any thought, honestly, into what, when, or how tour dates and merch is going to be attained / distributed. So thank you for your patience with me. I first and foremost hope that everybody is okay. Lindsay is gone, but I hope Lindsay somewhere knows that I hope they're okay as well. Hope everybody is doing okay in this like weird time right now. Like I said in the very beginning of the stream, I do feel like it's raining and everybody is inside. The inside, in this analogy being the internet, where everybody's feed is insane right now because everybody's constantly on it. And also, everything is closed down. I do appreciate that pun, Maddie. I do. Come to Boston when this blows over. I'll try, Hank. I'll try to go somewhere. I just want to go to the arcade when this blows over. The arcade's been closed in LA. Okay, so with that said, everybody's feed has been very, very oversaturated lately. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like everybody and their mom is streaming now. Like people that never stream are streaming. My Instagram feed is just everybody live streaming every 2 seconds. So with that said, I'm just going to keep doing streaming as usual. There is no like new specific like Corona themed stream coming up, so I do appreciate you guys for supporting the stream, the morning medleys as you do. So I'm going to try again to do this, to do Hush Hour as the ending stream song. Oh, hold on, this is actually kind of cool. I'm being a Twitch streamer because of this virus. Sell some feet pics as cyber. Word up. I mean, those are going hot. Those are going hot. I have noticed a lot of people's like OnlyFans are doing really, really well. Welcome back, Burrows, to the very end of the stream. I'm glad to see you and know that you are in good health. I just finished Charles Gambino's final album, and dang, man, it's interesting. I agree with you, Burrows. Um, it's your second to last stream, right? Says John Evergreen. It is not actually my second to last stream, but it is approaching 100. 100 will not be my last stream, John Evergreen. It's just going to be the end of a series, but I will keep streaming as is my custom. I did Burrows. But I'm not going to talk about it now because the stream is over. So thank you, everybody, for coming in and spending an hour with me. Thank you for respecting me and being polite to each other. I do appreciate it a lot, especially with these remote streams. Nobody knows what's going on. Again, I feel like a substitute teacher trying to make up lesson plans out of thin air. So I do appreciate you guys for that. I will be back on Tuesday morning, back to the old setup in my bedroom. Until then, I guess I stay safe, everybody. I hope that everybody is just staying safe in this time and also not going insane. I am fortunate enough that I do not live with a bunch of people, so I'm not exactly stuck indoors with a lot of people, which is nice. But if you are stuck inside with your family or I don't know, some kids or something, I hope that you are managing well and that you guys are not at each other's throats. All right, guys. Abo, be cool for Tuesday. Super Tuesday. Abo.